Is the microphone on? Okay, great. We'll get started. Apologies for my delayed arrival here. Just a few items to point out at the beginning of our meeting. When we call the roll, Laura Kay here will call the roll. As she does, please indicate whether you're alone or if someone's participating with you at your location for those who are on the phone. During the meeting, if you make a motion and you're here by phone, please identify yourself for the record. And please also keep your phone on mute unless you were speaking. I think do we have a quorum here today? Or do we need to? Okay. So we will call the roll.
Chairman John?
Present.
Ashley Neighbors?
Present and alone.
Lawrence Byers? Present.
Present.
Greg Turner?
Present and alone.
Commissioner Schwinn? Dr. Heidi Flemings?
Present and alone.
Dr. Linda Martin? Cyrus Vandendust?
Present.
Jeff Norrod?
Here I'm dialed in and alone.
Okay, so we are unable to establish a quorum here, so we'll establish this necessity. Peter Abernathy will read the statement of necessity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, we do not have a quorum here physically present today, so as such, Tennessee Code Annotated 8-44-108B2 requires that the board make a determination that a necessity exists in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication. A necessity means that the matters to be considered by a public body at a meeting require timely action by the body, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. In this case, two facts support a determination of necessity. First, today's agenda item requires timely action by the board to allow TSAC staff or institutions of higher education, and other partners and stakeholders to continue to serve the students effectively and efficiently. And second, scheduling conflicts and other commitments prevented a quorum of members from being physically present today.
Great. Do we have to have motions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Claude Presnell. I move that based on the summary just provided by Mr. Abernathy, we determine a necessity exists for the members to participate electronically, and that the adoption of this motion and Mr. Abernathy's recitation of the facts and circumstances on which the determination of necessity is based be included in the minutes of this meeting.
Great. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second. This is Greg Turner. I'll second it.
Great, thank you, Greg. This will be a roll call vote. RK will take the roll.
Chairman John?
Aye.
Ashley Neighbors?
Aye.
Claude Presnell?
Aye.
Greg Turner?
Aye.
Commissioner Schwinn?
Aye.
Dr. Heidi Flemings?
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin? Cyrus Vandendust?
Aye.
And Jeff Norrod. That's 8 ayes.
Great. The necessity is approved. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Do we need to have a roll call vote for this, or can we do it by? Okay, great. So we'll do another roll call vote. Okay.
Chairman John?
Aye.
Do we need a motion? Sorry, do we need a
Oh,
motion?
you're right.
Yep.
Apologies. We'll wait for a motion.
Yeah, move to adopt.
Emily House
No,
seconds.
I can't second.
Emily
I would ask
Johnson.
for a second.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you. Laura Kay.
Chairman John,
Aye.
Trying to be helpful. I wasn't helpful.
Ashley Neighbors,
Aye.
Lauren Spires,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwinn,
Aye.
Dr. Lemming,
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin, Cyrus Vandenduss,
Aye.
Jeff Norrod. 8 ayes, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, the agenda is adopted. Next agenda item is approval of the minutes of the February 25th. It's been a while. February 25th, 2021 board meeting. That is posted as a link in today's agenda on the TSAC website for those listening. Are there any discussion or any questions on the minutes before any motion to approve the minutes? Do we need to vote on this? Okay, great. If we could have a motion to approve the minutes from February 25th.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Motion from Lauren. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cyrus. Yep. Laura Kay, you can take the roll for this vote.
Chairman John,
Aye.
Ashley Neighbors,
Aye.
Spires,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwinn,
Aye.
Dr. Lemming,
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin, Cyrus Vandenduss,
Aye.
Jeff Norrod.
Aye.
It's 9 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, the minutes are adopted. Thank you all for being here today, in person, on the phone. It is nice to get back together with everyone. I think today's meeting will be relatively short. We have a few items to update on, a few decision items that I think will be relatively brief discussion, but do want to leave plenty of time for that. So I don't have any other items to report, and I will turn it over to Dr. House to give the ED's report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Najad. Very briefly as well, just thank you all for being here in person. Those of you on the phone, thank you for joining us. A few items today I think will be interesting for discussion, as well as some action items. I will just be very brief, and then I'll turn it over to James Snyder for one of those information items. But really cannot thank you all enough for the engagement around this meeting. We spoke with everybody prior to this meeting. Thanks to the TSAC team, the TSAC team, many of whom are here in the room. As we always just continue this conversation about affordability and student-centeredness. I realize I am a broken record at this point, but it's just very important and very affirming in all the conversations we have all had about how students are very much kept at the center of all of these discussions, as well as affordability to students and families across the state. So I think we'll hear a lot of that today in James's remarks about the Promise and Reconnect programs, in our discussion about TSAA, as well as Tim's presentation later on about the HOPE report and all that. So with that, I will cede my time to James to talk a little bit more about Promise and Reconnect.
I'm fine. I wasn't sure. And we're all lucky for me to have produced slides for today. So thank you, Chairman Chad, Dr. House, members of the board. Give me a couple of minutes here for a brief update on Tennessee Promise, Tennessee Reconnect. So just we've seen this slide in the past, and this is just a quick breakdown, and I believe this was presented at the Tennessee Promise board recently as well. Looking at generally application totals, enrollment totals, average awards, total expenditures for the years, and then success rates on the first 4 cohorts, if you will. We hope to have, I believe, cohort 5 later this fall. I would defer that information to Amanda Clefane and Dr. Gentile and Amanda Clefane and our data team. But as we're looking at this, we have seen steady increases across the application cohorts, with the exception of cohort 6 being our, I guess, the group most impacted by COVID. although we did see a slight decrease, not really by any surprise from a general application perspective, although total enrollments did continue to increase even with COVID. I will say I will be interested to see, and I've brought this up to Dr. Gentile and to Amanda, to see from the total enrolled, the total number of attempted hours. To me, that's going to be the most interesting piece to see. As we look at it, students enrolled, I would like to see hours in which they enrolled as well. And as we see, our average award did decrease down closer to our original cohort for cohort 6, so we're about 969 roughly. Expenditures, we right at 30.4 million for cohort 6, so in the same space across all of the cohorts.
James, can I just interject
sure.
really quick?
Yep.
So I think something noteworthy, and some of you heard me say this, those of you on the phone, this is Emily, and I know Ashley heard me say this at the Promise Board meeting and whoever else was present. I think it is really a testament to the school counselors, Commissioner Schwinn, the TSAC and TSAC outreach teams, our partnering organizations, that the 2020 and 2021 numbers look like they do. That applications were steady and there was actually an increase in the number enrolled. So in the madness that has been these past couple of years, I think credit where credit is due to all of us, of course, but to the school counselors and to the outreach folks.
Absolutely, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? So you're, this is Claude. So the success rate, you still have graduates, still enrolled. It used to also include successful transfers. Is that not included in the success rate any longer?
So that would be students that are still enrolled. And so
Okay, so you enrolled either in Promise or.
So in the Tennessee Promise Board slides, it was broken down into 3 buckets, if you will, and that was a bit hard to digest. And so we combined them into one single success rate number, and I can get you the slides that broke it down into the 3 if that would be
Yeah, that'd be great. I know the Board of Regents used to actually, even on the graduated, indicated which are certificates, which are degrees, associate degrees, and they would kind of break all that out. If you've got that, I'd love to have it.
Yep, we do. It's usually in the Promise reports, but I can pull from the board report that we used about a month ago. I can send you that over.
Thank you.
Yep, for sure. And so we wanted to detail some of the modifications that we made during spring of 19 as COVID began, and then into the 2020-2021 academic year. And so as we're looking through these through the authority given to at that time, Director Krause, now Dr. House, we were able to waive enrollment requirements to allow students to take less than the full-time requirements in the spring and summer of 20. And then we were able to make some impacts in 2020 and 2021 as well, which were significant I believe, played a significant role in our enrollment numbers and allowing those students some grace given the transition to online learning that many of our institutions were forced into. We provided institutions with GPA calculation guidance for specifically for the spring and summer terms of the 1920 academic year, which were the most directly impacted by the transition to online learning that our campus has experienced when COVID appeared. And then the application deadline was extended from November 1 to December 1, again, granting our high school cohort a bit of grace as we were dealing with everything in the fall. The community service requirements were waived for summer 20 and the entire 2021 academic year, which was significant as well. We were in a position to extend the FAFSA deadline from February 1 to March 15th. We initially moved from February 1 to March 1. We noticed that we still had a bit of some lag, so we extended to March 15th there as well. And then the last piece was the most significant, and I believe it played a significant role in, hopefully in our enrollment numbers that we'll see at the next board meeting for the fall of 21. We provided a gap year opportunity for 2020 grads who weren't in a position to initially enroll in the fall of 20. They are traditionally required to enroll the fall immediately after graduation. We were in a position to allow that group of students to essentially take a year off, file the FAFSA, and then do their 8 hours of community service, whether they did it in person or virtually, and then enroll this fall as if they had not missed any time. And so I'm interested to see how that gap year played into enrollment numbers for fall of 21. So we'll hopefully have that soon. Okay, and then some just general updates. So we we do have our college coaching initiative, and I believe we're going into year 3. So for year 2 of this initiative, we did serve over 7,000 students, which is a significant number of students. This is through AIRS and Tennessee Achieves. At risk, one of the most interesting pieces, and I just received this about a week and a half ago in our annual kind of reports back from the POs. The Tennessee Achieves cohort specifically, the promised students receiving coaching retained at nearly double that from fall to spring, retained eligibility at nearly double the rate of their counterparts that are not receiving coaching. So it's a significant praise for the college coaching that Tennessee Achieves and the AIRS Foundation are doing. We were able to successfully recruit. I say we, Tennessee Achieves was able to, not to take any of their credit, they were able to recruit 9,500 mentors, and we are currently actively recruiting mentors. So as I do at every board meeting, if you do not serve as a mentor and you would love to serve as a mentor, I would be happy to put you in contact with the right folks to get that done. It's a wonderful opportunity if you're not currently doing that. And then for the fall of 2021, we were able to implement, pursuant to Public Chapter 512, we're implementing a pilot grant program for the partnering organizations to provide emergency grants for students on the eligible institution campuses. It's $250,000 a year currently. It's $1 million in funding. The emergency funds could be used to offset just general unexpected burdens. So it may be textbooks, it could be supplies, class fees, gas and grocery cards, et cetera. And just anecdotally, I've heard from Achieves that their $250 for the year has already been allocated. And so it's a great thing that we had the funds available, but it speaks to the necessity of the program, in my opinion. So now we transition, so before I transition to Reconnect, do we have any general questions from a promise perspective? I'll pause. Okay. So now just a brief Reconnect update here, a progress report. So as we are seeing, applications have remained relatively steady. We have seen in the cohort 3 a slight decline in applications, and I will speak to that on a general update slide in a moment. Total enrolled, we did see a decline in cohort 3 from not an adult learner, but just a general adult's perspective that has a young child at home. If I was an adult learner with a child at home, I can't imagine being in that position of trying to manage having my children at home while also going to school. So again, from an anecdotal perspective, that number doesn't exactly surprise me. I'm hoping that as we go into the fall of 21, we'll see that number tick back up. Now, as we and I'll jump ahead of myself here. As we are looking at enrollment declines, the interest in the program is still there. We're seeing upwards of 300 monthly contacts with our Reconnect Navigate team. So we definitely still have the interest. It's just trying to find the ways to connect those students with the enrollment opportunities. So that's an important distinction as we look at enrollment declines that might not jive necessarily with actual interest in the program. Average award, the expenditures, again, relatively flat, and we are still looking, we're still waiting on cohort 2 success rates, which would be the same, graduated, transferred, or still enrolled. Similar modifications here, and as we, similar to what we did with Promise, we were able to waive the enrollment requirements to essentially allow students to enroll in as few as one class. It just take if you were able to take a single class, we will be able to fund that course rather than the traditional requirement of 6 credit hours or essentially 2 classes. The same guidance for GPA calculations for the spring and summer were provided for Reconnect students as they were for Promise students. And then from a FAFSA perspective, traditionally students have to file the FAFSA by February 1 for spring and summer. We were able to extend that to May 15th to grant them the most latitude from a FAFSA perspective that we felt was necessary. And then a couple of general updates here. We are currently in a partnership with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development and other stakeholders in our Reconnect to Workforce initiative. Since November 5th, we've sent over 600,000 emails. I actually have another group to send today. It's usually every month we get about 20,000 additional student contacts, and we're sending them an email to help them connect back with the Reconnect program as part of the unemployment initiative program. And so we've had over 2,700 applicants to date. So it has been I would consider it a success, helping those students to reconnect back in. And then again, stressing the fact that while we have seen some declines in enrollment, we have continued to see an increased interest from potential students. And so the 5% increase active reconnectors, which is a great thing, and then the average of 300 students contacting monthly. So, did we have any reconnect questions in general?
I just have a comment. This is Emily. So what I think is really interesting about, James, the slide you just presented about Reconnect, we can all list the challenges that adults, period, have faced over the past 18 months, let alone the challenges of an adult learner. And I think what's really interesting about these two initiatives in particular, the labor partnership specifically, is the information is out there. Students are interested. Students are connecting with navigators to learn more about this. It's just for so many of these students, now is not the moment to really dive back in, just because life is in the way for many of us for many reasons right now. So I think kudos again to everybody involved in these programs. I think the fact that we are having these conversations with individuals in the communities, with adults who do want to go back, is so promising, even if now is not like the literal moment where they are able to do so. And just kind of a fun fact for everybody's like policy context, I think what's really interesting, so James mentioned that we've had about 3,000 people via this UI engagement participate in Reconnect. A similar program was launched in Michigan, and they like couldn't keep the doors on. Like a Reconnect program for first line workers in Michigan, they like the interest, the take up and the interest just really, really outstrapped the resources. Missouri tried to do something similar, and it was crickets. So we fall kind of squarely in the middle, to say nothing of what the other 47 states might be doing. So I think what's interesting is colleagues in other states with whom we've discussed this, we kind of fall in the middle of what the take up looks like. So that's just kind of your state policy fun fact for the day. But I think this is really interesting as we think about what this looks like in other states too.
James, you noted we waived the minimum enrollment requirement, minimum credit hour. How does that shake out when we look at our success rate of who's currently enrolled? How many students took advantage or benefited from that waiver?
So we're still kind of evaluating what happened in the spring and fall of that year. So that was something that I'd actually reached out to Amanda to hopefully have, but it's just not ready yet from a digestion.
Because it would have only taken place last semester in the fall and this spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could ask a follow-up on that, how are you going to take that into account in terms of the termination of the program? Are you just track them individually, or?
We are still, that's a piece of the puzzle that we don't yet have an answer to. And so ideally, from a Reconnect perspective, specifically the students they have up to 5 years. And so in theory, that could come out in the wash, if you will.
Yeah.
But for those that this negatively impacted, that we do have the appeal process where those students could address it individually, if you will. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know that there's a one size fits all that could fix it necessarily without a statutory adjustment to the terminating events, but with the appeal process in place, we do have that piece to touch one student at a time.
On the previous slide, you said that you all gave guidance to the institutions about GPA calculations. What was that guidance?
So, and I'm going to spitball here on the language of the public chapter, because we didn't actually have the authority to alter academic requirements. And so we could, from a Promise and Reconnect perspective, specifically Promise and Reconnect, the GPA is determined by the institution. So we felt that the authority was there to provide guidance as to how the institution could calculate specifically the GPA for 1920. So one example that we gave, and we weren't telling you this is how you have to do it. Our guidance was a recommendation, essentially, that if in the spring a student had a 0.9, I'm just going to use an example, but in the fall that student had a 3.0, you could use the 3.0 from the fall as the spring GPA as well. That would allow that student to maintain eligibility. Because again, you are the institution, you're determining that student's grade point average for the academic year. So, and that guidance specifically was not extended into 2021, but it was specific to 1920 spring and fall, or spring and summer, because of the direct impact, the suddenness of the direct impact, right? While we weren't necessarily prepared for fall, spring, and summer of 20 and 21, we were more prepared than we were in the spring of 19 and the summer of 19.
Thank you.
And we can provide that guidance. If that would be useful to you and to the comptroller, Lauren, we can provide that
Will
actual
you share
guidance to
these
you.
slides out with us too?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, James.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Next on the agenda, we have a few decision items. The first item on the agenda is changes to the TSAA. Dr. House, if you could.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Nignajad again. So I think we've all, for the most part, checked in on these two proposed changes in the weeks leading up to this meeting. So I will be quite brief in my comments just now. The first proposed change is actually not something that requires a vote, but just want to make sure that I state it for the record, and we have all discussed this on our one-on-one calls. The first proposed change to TSAA is to increase the EFC such that it is consistent with Pell. So any student that is Pell eligible is now TSAA eligible. That has not always been the case. I know Dr. Presnell has talked about this a great deal. Dr. Gentile, who's not here, Stephen Gentile, has included comments about this in the strategic financial plan for TSAC and TSAC. So this is very much in alignment with conversations that we've had prior. The cost on this is anticipated to be about $7 million, and I'll make some more general comments about costs in a second, but not a particularly huge cost, and can be contained in the current appropriation. I know Greg Turner is going to ask that question. So it's in the current appropriation, no request for additional funds for that. So that is the first proposed change to TSAA, move the EFC up to it being consistent with Pell. Lauren asked a really good question on the prep calls about this. Because the EFC for Pell changes each year, it is we anticipate that we will change the EFC commensurate with Pell each year for TSAA. The second,
Can I?
yes.
Thank you. This is huge. This is something I've been trying to work on for 26 years. So, I mean, it's really huge to help low-income students be able to afford to go to the college of their choice. And I was distributing TSAA 31 years ago at Belmont when I was the director of student financial aid there. Then I've been in this job for 26 years trying to promote this. I talked to Ron Gamble. He said in his memory, he never knew that it ever was at a point where it's matching the Pell. So this may be, I think, a pretty historic moment for the need-based aid program, and probably the best need-based aid program in the nation, honestly, in terms of serving the Pell population. So, and I really do believe this is the most transformative type of aid. If you can get somebody to break the cycle of poverty by equipping them to be able to get gainful employment, it's just huge. And kudos to the governor for the focus on the GIVE Act as well, because it's that whole broad range of certificates clear through advanced degrees. And so anyway, I had to say
great.
thanks. It's huge. So.
Any other comments about this first proposed change? Sorry, I think that's Tony's job. Are there any other comments about this change before I move on to the next one? Okay, and then just a flag for this group that this change that I just mentioned about the EFC can be implemented immediately. The next proposed change is something that would not be implemented until the 22-23 academic year, so not till next year, and this does require board action, so there will be this proposal in a second. The second proposed change to TSAA is to increase the award amount for students who are at the community colleges and technical colleges from $1,000 to $2,000. So there are a few reasons for this change, one of which, and Chairman Nignajad, you may want to jump in on this if you're welcome to, of course. We've had some conversations with Tony and his team about students who may not be Promise eligible, but may not yet be Reconnect eligible, for this kind of group in the middle that for all intents and purposes are age 19 to 24. What is something that we could do for that group? And in lieu of creating a new program for this kind of gap group, this is a change to TSAA for which many of these students are eligible that will help to close that gap in financing higher ed when they're not, for any reason, eligible or yet eligible for Promise or Reconnect. Do you want to say anything else?
No, I think you summarized it really well. I think a few remarks on kind of cost impact and how we model that.
Yep, absolutely. So we anticipate the cost of that to be $12 to $13 million. Again, something that can be absorbed between the appropriation and the reserve, which I'll look to Tim or Brett or Pete to speak a little bit more about. But really just thinking about the population of students who are attending these institutions, as I said, are very often TSAA eligible, and just increasing the buying power of this award at relatively little cost to the state that can be absorbed in the $113 million appropriation yearly, as well as within the $30 million reserve, should we need to dig into that. Pete, do you want to speak a little bit to the plans for spending down a little bit of the reserve as needed over the next couple of years?
Thank you. The idea that we have discussed internally is to try to move funding and expenditures in a way over the next 2 to 3 years that would move our current reserve balance of about $30 million down to the board's intent of about 10% of appropriations, which would be in the $12–13 million range. So, so with that in mind, we will intend to spend more, of course, than the $113 million appropriation for the next 2 to 3 years to bring that reserve down. But once that levels down to that 10% range, then we would start leveling off those awards and make sure that we cut them off early enough in the spring. And if we need to, go back out for another award cycle in the fall term, just so that we know we don't go over the appropriation amount more than we should. But it would be probably a 2 to 3 year plan to get us in that posture.
Spend down the reserve a little bit. Thanks, Pete. And just for everybody's awareness, and you all might know this, like the THEC and TSAC team can control the point at which in the academic year we stop making these awards. So if we are seeing that we're getting too close to dipping into the reserve more than we're comfortable with, more than the board's comfortable with, we stop. So there should not be any heartburn there that all of a sudden the appropriation and the reserve are just going to be gone in a year. That's not going to happen. So yeah.
And historically, we haven't had to exercise that power much of cutting off the reserves.
No, we really haven't. No, sir. So 5, 6 plus years ago, TSAA was very much awarded on a first come, first serve basis. And the awards were they always ran out. And thanks to Governor Haslam, Governor Lee, the General Assembly, there has been an increased investment in TSAA such that we do not have that problem any longer. So something that was a profound problem for years, and I know Pete and Claude can speak more to that, is no longer an issue just because of the generosity and the priority placed on this pool of aid. So short answer, no, we have not had to do that.
Great. Yeah, and so I think if I could summarize it well, these two items well together, we've come a long way in sustaining this award program with new appropriations and investments, and we're now at a point where, from the individual student's perspective, it's not going quite as far as it would have gone when we first established these rates several years ago. So this is an opportunity to really refresh and kind of modernize here, and do so in a way that is not intended to draw down or spend down our reserve, but really reduce the rate at which that reserve would otherwise grow, or set it from a mildly accelerating path to a mildly decelerating path. So I think anytime we change or expand awards, we want to be really careful and ensure that we're on that path for fiscal sustainability, and I feel very good that the work done so far shows us that we're on that path. So with that, I think in order to adopt the change of the expansion of the maximum award amount from 1,000 to 2,000, we need a motion and a second. But any other discussion on that before we?
Hey everyone, good afternoon. This is Jeff Nora, the current president of TSAC. And we've looked at your proposal, and we'd just like to say that we add our support to this program for the increase in TSAA. And just want to thank everyone for working on this proposal for increase, and we think it's going to help a lot of students right now and in this time frame that when they need it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate the comment. Lauren, you had a comment?
Yeah, so here it says, given recent declines in the TSAA take-up rate, so is that like a reduced number of students who are, so what do we attribute that to? A reduction in the number of students who are qualifying for, or applying for, or getting TSAA?
So these are, and Tim can jump in here too, but basically we're looking at students who would ordinarily qualify for the award, but just simply aren't taking it up. They aren't accepting the award, so they don't enroll in school, or perhaps they enroll part-time instead of full-time. So the payment of awards is going down, even though the total number of students is probably roughly the same.
This is Greg Turner. Would either of these actions impact our expenditures on the promise side at all?
You want to go ahead? Yeah.
Hey, Greg, it's Tim Phelps. Yes, there will be some impact to Promise, and we just ran some preliminary numbers. We're probably looking at, for the program, a savings to Promise of $500,000 to maybe $1 million in there. That's kind of our preliminary number at this point, but we're working with Dr. Gentile and his team to get a more accurate number, but I think it'll be somewhere in that range.
Okay, thank you.
Great. If there's no other discussions or questions, do we have a motion on accepting the motion to adopt the increase in the award amount from 1,000 to 2,000?
So moved.
Do we have a second to that motion?
This is Heidi Lemming, second.
Okay, Laura Kay, if you could take the roll.
I bet Heidi wanted to make that motion.
Heidi's probably real happy.
Yeah, how about we flip it around? Heidi, you make the motion, I'll make the second.
I tried.
Chairman John,
Aye.
Ashley Neighbors,
Aye.
Lauren Spires,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwinn,
Aye.
Dr. Lemming,
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin, Cyrus Vandendues,
Aye.
Jeff Norrod.
Aye.
Great. The change is so adopted. Next item on the agenda is board officers for the 2021-2022 year. Peter, could you please present this item?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very quick item, I believe, but anytime there is a change in county assignments in the Tennessee Promise program with one of the partnering organizations that we have. Currently, we have two organizations, Tennessee Achieves and the Heirs Foundation. There were several counties that moved from, transitioned from the Achieves organization to the Heirs Foundation. And so our rules require that that be approved by the county executive and then also ratified and approved by the board of directors. So you should have a second page on this item, decision item B, online, on the online packet, and that lists the counties there before you that are assigned to each of those two organizations.
Great. So again, those counties are listed in your packet. Any questions on the changes or the organizations generally?
I do. Is there any context to why Ayers is picking up more counties?
Well, that's a good question. There was an item in the budget for this year, and I don't know much about the background on it, but there was a governor's rural education initiative that funding was given to the Heirs Foundation to help implement that. And so for those counties that are going to be participating in that initiative with Heirs, I think they found it easier to have one partnering organization to work with rather than two. So I think those were the counties then that transitioned from Tennessee Achieves over to Heirs.
Okay, thanks.
And there were, to be specific, there were 7 of those counties that made that choice.
Great. Any other questions or discussion? If not, do we have a motion to, are we accepting or adopting this change?
Adopting, I
Yeah,
think, is,
yeah.
it
Motion-
needs to be an action item.
Yeah, motion to adopt the change of counties for payers from NCHEs.
So moved.
Second.
Great, Laura Kay?
Chairman Nicknajon,
Aye.
Ashley Neighbors,
Aye.
Lauren Squires,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner,
Aye.
Commissioner Swin,
Aye.
Dr. Leamy,
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin, Cyrus Vandendues,
Aye.
and Jeff Norrod.
Aye.
Nine, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. So it is so adopted, and I apologize, I misspoke earlier. Board officers for 2021-2022 is the next item on the agenda, and that is what we are taking up now. Peter, or Dr. House, if you mind, just speaking to this item.
Sure, thank you. Each year, and for those of, actually, probably all of you are familiar with this item, each year we have to go through this to be compliant with our bylaws, and that would be to elect a slate of officers. And again, in your packet, you can see the list of officers that are up for the 21-22 academic year. And so we would present that slate of officers for you. This is a continuation of the same officers that existed in the prior academic year.
We did so well last year, we're keeping the same
That's
team.
exactly right.
We got the hot hand. Okay, any discussion on board officers? Any motions? Cyrus is ready to say.
I'll motion.
Cyrus?
I'll second it.
Great. We'll take the roll.
Chairman Nicknajon,
Aye.
Ashley Neighbors,
Aye.
Lauren Squires,
Aye.
Claude Presnell,
Aye.
Greg Turner,
Aye.
Swin. Commissioner Swin,
Aye.
Dr. Leamy,
Aye.
Dr. Linda Martin, Cyrus Vandendues, and Jeff Norrod.
Aye.
I have 9 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you. All right. So that concludes the decision items for today. We have one other item on the agenda for discussion, the 2020 to 2021 TELS and the grants and scholarship reports from Tim Phelps. If Tim, you would, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. House, members of the board, just have just a few brief comments, but did want to take a moment of personal privilege to just say thanks to the grants and scholarship staff that I work with, along with James, Robert Biggers, Lee Llewellyn, Janice Daniel, and their staff members do a fantastic job administering our programs, making payments, working with the colleges and universities, the students and parents, just all sorts of things that we do to administer all the aid that we have. So I can't thank them enough for the great work that they do. Diving into the programs, for the second straight year, we paid over $500 million in TSAC aid on behalf of students. In 1920, the 2019-20 year, we had about $510 million that we paid, and then this past year for 2021, we had just over $508 million. And Claude mentioned this earlier, as far as if you look nationwide, we really do have one of the best TSA programs in the country, and I can say with confidence, there's not many states that we have where we have the size of the merit-based programs that we have, in addition to the need-based programs. And so to echo Dr. House's comments, it's a testament to the Governor Haslam, Governor Lee, and their administrations for doing that. I think I say this almost every year, but when I first got here, we were probably around 30 to 40 million in TSAA that we dispersed on behalf of students, and so we're essentially almost triple that right now. And so it's definitely great to see that program grow. And for TSA, we paid just over 106 million this past year, 66,000 students. That's the highest amount that we've ever paid on behalf of students. And if you look back over 3 of the last 4 years, and one of those years was an intentional underspend, but we've paid over 100 million in TSA awards to the students. On the lottery side, we have 1 year we had 2019-20, we went just over 400 million that we paid to about 150,000 students. And then this past year, we were just under 400 million, but we're right at that $400 million mark. The one program that I will single out is dual enrollment. We did have, for the first time in its history, the dual enrollment program decreased from 1 year to the next. And that program started in I think it was the 05-06 academic year. And every year since then, dollars had increased, participation had increased. But this year, from 1920 to 2021, it was a minor decrease. It was about $400,000. But in the grand scheme of things, the program's still going strong. So, and we'll continue to go strong with the changes that we've made to the program. So that concludes my report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Just, Tim, real quick, so the adjustment in the EFC for 21-22, when will the campuses be notified about that?
Yeah. When we get final approval from Dr. House, then we will actually make the awards. It will be within the next two to 3 weeks, and then we'll notify the campuses that, hey, we bumped the EFC up. So it should be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. There's some things we have to do through the FAST system that we use to administer the program to kind of set it all up, and then once we hit the button, then it will award those students over the weekend, essentially. So ballpark 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can state, at least in my sector, that this type of investment really helps reduce student loan burden. And, you know, Tennessee is, at least on the private side, on the public side, we're a low tuition, low loan state, and we ought to be proud of that. I think that's really, really good.
And I will say, and I know Jeff Norrad's on, but we try to work with TSAC as much as possible, our statewide association. So they do a great job helping us administer the programs, and so it's a good partnership that we have with TSAC and with TSAC.
Yep, thank you.
Tim, any other general trends from TLS that you want to call out? Fiscal performance, anything noteworthy?
Really just the fact, and I would say to this, Mr. Chairman, we've gone, and really it's our aid in general, but our total aid is that we've hit that $500 million mark, and now I want to move to that $600 million mark and keep going. So, or at least trending in that direction. So in the 15 years that I've been here, it's been a substantial increase in the amount of aid that we've paid. So, but that's more of a wish list than it is a trend. But I'm greedy like that.
Well, I think generally speaking too, and James kind of said this a moment ago when he was up at the podium, that there's still a lot of data coming in, thinking about awards that were made and what the effect is going to be, not only of the award, but kind of on the experience of students over the past 18 months. So I think there's more to come, and I think there are lessons to be learned from what we are seeing at the institutions. There are lessons to be learned from some of the changes that Mike and then I had the authority to make temporarily to these programs. So I think there's a lot of learning and a lot of data still to consume. So the next time we're all together, I'm sure this conversation will continue.
Here, one last question. Where are we on the Tennessee Promise Reserve account, and how much longer do we see the sweep going in there? And I was a little surprised that the increase in the TSAA for community college students wouldn't have a greater impact on Promise.
Yeah.
But where are we on that?
So the reserve amount itself is up to 775 million.
Okay.
And of that 775, 360-ish, I think, cannot be touched. But I don't think we've sat down and had the conversation about what that end balance needs to be in order to be considered, for the program to be considered self-sufficient at this point. Am I missing something?
No, that's correct. I mean, I think to come up with a number would require folks from F&A and Treasury and others to gather around and kind of determine what the comfort level is, because there's so many variables that go into that endowment. You know, the tuition increases each year and the endowment earnings that are generated each year. How much lottery revenue we get, what the expenditures are in promise and lottery programs. So there's so many variables that can go up and down. And over a long period of time, I think we can relatively well project where we'll be and what we need. But that number can change radically from year to year, you know, based on what happens with all those variables. So I think, do we want to be comfortable with the longer term trend or more of a short term look? So we haven't, to Tim's point, we haven't sat down and actually come up with a number yet.
We're still averaging though about 35 million or 33 to 35 million expenditures in promise? Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, okay, yeah, thank you.
And the endowment earnings have done phenomenal the last couple of years.
Yeah, they have.
And so it's been great for the reserve itself. So, but yeah, and I think there may be some who think we're pretty close to that number of whatever that number is of being self-sufficient, but we're at that 775 right now.
Great. Any other business board members want to raise for discussion today? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn? Should we motion? All right, we are adjourned. Thanks,
Yes.
everybody.
All right.